I've long considered the front of our bookstore a trap, one carefully set. This is as it must be. Although we are in the wearingly popular Marais district, we are in the lower Marais, closer to the Seine but farther from the falafel stands and the crêperies, the pedestrian streets, and thus the crowds, and thus customers. One side of our block is almost entirely taken up with the blank back wall of a monastery, which may or may not be occupied. Despite all the bells, I've never seen a monk on the sidewalk. Opposite the monastery, a succession of shops like ours, peering out from the ground floors of anonymous flat-front buildings in various shades of cream forever staining yellow. High above, zinc roofs slowly bruise black, windows shrug away shutters. Here and there appear flowers, or their remains. So too wrought iron railings, or their remains. And our store, bright red, like an apple, a wound. The store has always been red, but it was deeper, bluer, more toward the color of Cabernet when I first saw it. It was my choice to update it to cherry, almost fire truck red. This caused a mild scandal, even though I'd cleared it with our landlord, the store's original proprietor, Madame Brouillard. One painter quit on me before he got started, and another quit after scraping and priming. Upon the recommendation of my UPS driver and unofficial street concierge, Laurent, I finally hired a Polish man who spoke almost as little French as I did, and thus didn't care what anyone thought. I asked Laurent what he thought when the job was done. Laurent looked up and down the street. The painter had not only gotten exactly right the clarion red I wanted, he'd layered what looked to be 36 coats of clear lacquer on top. The place shone as if it had been enameled in molten lollipop. Laurent said I should sell them. Lollipops. I shook my head. He shook his. We sell books. Gold letters say this on the window. Bookshop to one side, Librairie Anglophone to the other. In the middle, our name. A debate. It had been named for the street, which is named for St. Lucy. This confuses people. Across town there is another street named for her. More confusion. Lucy is the patron saint of writers. But Madame Brouillard said the name sometimes brought in religious shoppers, and most times, no one at all. Once upon a time, she insisted to me the street had been crowded, not just with book buyers, but booksellers. One by one, the stores departed, and many left their stock behind with Madame. The English language volumes, not the French. The dross, not the treasures. And needless to say, the dead, not the living. She had hardly anything by living authors. I suggested rechristening the store the Late Edition. Late, as in we would henceforth specialize in authors who, unlike their books, were dead. She didn't like it, but she let me proceed, as one of her keenest pleasures is bearing a grudge. I sometimes think it's why she let me, who knew little about bookstores, and even less about French, assume control of a bookshop she'd owned for decades. And it's likely why she watched with interest as the dead authors angle turned out to be just the sort of Paris quirk travel writers craved, who were quick to note that I make living authors exceptions for children's books and books of any sort by women. Madame pays Laurent off the books to bring more stock from storage units outside Paris, where she's piled the leavings of her predecessors. Laurent says there aren't enough customers in the world for all the books waiting there. And Madame had a very small share of the world's customers. When we took over the store, the running joke was that we were down to 3. 2 Americans and 1 New Zealander, who also formed the sum total of my friends in Paris. Another joke. And whenever my daughters made it, I would smile to hide the hurt. Not only was it a stretch to call the 3 customers, but even more so to call them friends. Still, I was grateful they occasionally bought books.